Olivia Colman.
Look at me! Look at me! How dare you! Close your eyes!
The Oscar goes to Renee Zellweger.
You won't forget me, will you?
I am so grateful. Thank you so much, everybody.
Promise you won't.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? It is our annual Oscar roundup, and joining Scott and I on the show today, we have Anelle, who's a returning guest, friend of the show, head of sales at the Coven, the production company behind a little film called Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3, and again, good friend, Mark Palermo from the Movies and Chaos podcast. He's also a screenwriter and film critic. So welcome both of you to the show. And Anelle, welcome back.
Thank you.
Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to this.
You're looking forward to it. I see.
This is my favorite episode when we just like get to talk and shit like this. When I don't actually have to correct you on how bad your movie reviews are. I like these.
Yeah. If you're only listening to the audio, Scott missed the memo. Actually, it seems like I'm the only one who got the memo. I am wearing my very sleek, very tight tuxedo t-shirt. So
Help if there was a memo. There was no memo.
there was the problem.
I didn't get a memo. I can put a jacket on.
Did you get the
worn
TCS
a
reports
since prom?
Mark's Italian, so he's just gonna throw a suit jacket on. He's like, look, I'm ready for Cannes, I'm ready for whatever, you know what I mean? So I mean, before we get into the show, it's the usual what do we call it, Scott? Shameless self-promotion. Mark, do you have anything since we last talked on your show but that you want to disclose to the audience?
I mean, probably not. My mind always goes blank when people ask me that question. No, just keep listening to our podcast if you've started. Movies and Chaos. Our new episode's a few days late. Should maybe be out Monday this week. So
there was a really good episode where Scott and I were on. Scott and I were on the show. That was our last episode. A lot of talking.
Yeah, it's just like here, right? Like all the technical difficulty was actually Chris. Like he's the one that muted my mic a lot because he was like, I'm just going to talk.
Pretty much right.
What?
This is my dream.
No, you both agree.
What about you, Anelle? You just got back from Berlin Film Festival, correct?
Yeah. At Berlin, we announced we're going into production on a project called Brett, our demon doll movie. We're currently in production on a film called Haunted Heist with Tiffany Haddish and Lil Rel Howery. Our film, which is our very first production, Shadow of God, a little Canadian film from Alberta, is going to be released in the coming months as well.
So
awesome.
Is Brett the film I think it is that we talked about kind of offline, that you talked about, I think, last year when you got basically drunk with a bunch of people at the Berlin Film Festival and came up with this concept? Or
yeah, this is the same movie. We can now actually talk about it, which is super, super cool. Sosie Bacon is casted as the lead girl. Essentially, it's about a girl who's like 12 years old, is bullied, wishes her dolls could be her real friends, and comes to life Brett. He loves her. He thinks she's amazing. This is also the early 2000s, so very toxic masculinity energy coming from this doll. Fast forward, she's now in her 30s, and the doll is still waiting for her. And he's like, hey, babe, I love you. I miss you. Why don't you love me? Why are you with a human man? What the fuck? And in his little doll brain, his whole thing is like, oh, I need a penis for her to love me. It's not that I'm a doll and like 5 inches, like it's the penis. So he goes on a penis hunt for the rest of the movie to become a real man.
Wow, it's like some type of deranged, sexy Pinocchio. When he lies, does it get bigger, or how does that work?
No, what he's like, he like has to murder men to get a penis and tries to attach it to himself. Yeah. I'm not gonna ruin everything
Damn.
for you. But essentially it's like think of like a Megan meets Ted. Kind of meets Pinocchio, because he does have the whole like, I want to be a real boy.
Which
situation.
meets Ms. 45,
Yeah.
Mr. 6 inches,
Yeah.
or whatever. Or whatever.
Or
Sold
whatever.
every ticket to that movie. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, when is that? When do you plan on going to camera with that bad boy?
We're hoping to go to camera in Q4 of this year, so like October-ish. We were hoping to go sooner, but with the fires and everything, our actors are kind of focusing on other things, which is truly the most important thing, is rebuilding and making sure that they're all okay. So yeah.
Cool. Well, when you're ready, you'll definitely have to come back on the show and talk about about your film. Anything else, guys, before we get into? Come on, people really, they're just here for the good stuff, right? So, Scott, you got anything you want to say?
No, man, let's get this going. Let's get
All
this
right.
going.
All right, I'll hand it off to you, Scott, and yeah,
What?
take us away. Yeah, take us away.
Oh,
Man.
I was gonna say guests should go first. Like, come on.
No, but
Where's
I mean,
your
like,
where's your manners?
You lead the guests into the show. Like, go ahead.
So, are we doing it like normal years where we're leaving like picture for last?
Yeah, I think we should leave Best Picture for last.
All right. So, you guys want to start with leading actor, because that's the first thing on my screen.
Lady actor, cool.
Leading actor.
Oh, I was like,
I thought you said lady also. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Leading actor.
Is that
Listen,
what we call them now? Lady actors? Okay.
I was gonna say there's no more T, and like you guys have heard that, right? In the States, there's no more T. I'm just joking. But all right, so actor in a leading role.
female
The
actor
nominee-
leading. Are we doing actor?
What?
Actor.
Actor.
It sounds,
Come on.
sounds like male actor in a leading role.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the nominees are Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet,
I hate Timothy Chalamet.
Coleman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, and Sebastian Stan. So guests, who do you got?
Well, and let's have a little chat about, like, if you think that an actor, not just who's going to win, but maybe if you agree with it, if that's the person that should win.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Adrian Brody, the brutalist. I would say, like, I don't disagree with him winning, but I do think Chalamet like really hit it out of the park with A Complete Unknown, especially with him singing live, like as they were filming. Because how many people who are actual professional singers sing live while recording, and it's absolute dog
I don't know.
shit.
Have you heard Bob Dylan sing? It's not a high bar.
I know that, but have you heard Timothy
Sorry, Bob.
sing in Willy Wonka? Like, he did actually step it up in Willy Wonka. But yeah, I'm going with Adrian Brody on this one.
As your prediction?
Yeah.
Yep.
What about you, Mark?
I think it's also between Brody and Chalamet. I'm actually gonna say Chalamet's probably getting it. I do think in his case, he's an actor who is kind of a blank slate. And I think because he's so young, he's not, there's something about a Timothée Chalamet movie that it's vanilla ice cream. You know, he doesn't have the experience of an older actor where you watch if you watch a like Marlon Brando movie, there's a lot of experience in his face that goes beyond the performance. Chalamet is young, so he doesn't have that life experience that makes an actor interesting. But he really surprised me in this movie. I think he surprised a lot of people. It goes beyond simple Bob Dylan imitation to just kind of embody it in a way. I think there's a bit of controversy with the AI used to manipulate Adrian Brody's voice in The Brutalist that might not help him. So yeah, that's where I would lean on this one.
Scott?
I'm kind of the same as Mark here. I think it's gonna be Timothy Chalamet, only because the Academy knows how much you hate him, Chris. So they're like, let's put this guy on stage. But then, you know, your secret altar to Timothy, you'll be okay with. But like the thing, I do think it should be Brody though, because Like that thing was like 2 weeks long, that movie, and like he's like in every scene except for I think the second to last scene is the only, like the confrontation at the dinner table is the only scene that I know of he's not in. But he carried that whole like 4 hour movie up until 5 minutes, which I think is an accomplishment, which I think
And-
should go to him.
And so just for context, like, so Adrian Brody did win the BAFTA for The Brutalist. Both him and Timothy are nominated for SAG, which so we're recording on the 23rd, so I believe the SAG is tonight. So I mean, there's definitely momentum for both of those actors. But yeah, Mark also brings up an interesting point. Both The Brutalist and Emilia Pérez have some Emilia Pérez has lots of controversy we'll talk about, but they also both used AI to adjust singing in the context of Emilia Pérez, and then the Hungarian accents in The Brutalist. So I don't know, man. That's to me, that's a big no-no. Like, I mean, at this point, if you're gonna do that, you might as well just do the whole fucking thing with AI, right? Like, where's the app? Because like you said, if Timothy is doing it all on his own and Brody is getting things tweaked with AI, like, isn't that kind of an unfair advantage?
I don't know, because like if you actually look at, I think someone put out a video of the comparison, and it's not that noticeable.
Well, if it was so unnoticeable, they wouldn't have done it.
Well, the director's just also really, really specific, and like, so someone who doesn't know the Hungarian accent would not notice the difference. It's like if you put someone from two different dialects in like the Philippines, where I'm from, and like you heard them speaking the same language, you wouldn't be able to tell what islands they're from, but I can, right? That's the difference. Also, like, there's no rules going into this, so if the rules aren't present like at the point of nomination, I think it's such a gray area, and you can't like really control all the people who are voting.
Do you think?
Well, that's right.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm not saying this to take away from Brody's performance. It's just that the information about this aspect of The Brutalist is out there, and if people are going to take it out on anything, it's probably going to be this category. So it's not that I necessarily have like a strong take on, I mean, AI is used in Dune 2 also to affect their blue eye color from shot to shot. They've always used stuff like that. But I just think there's like a fear of AI right now, how it's going to impact art, how it's going to hijack our brains, that The Brutalist is going to take the brunt of this in this category of anything. He could still win, but I just think if there's anything going against this performance, it's because of that, because that's in the zeitgeist right now. Not that I have a strong feeling against it,
Yeah, and this is not it's not an objective competition, right? Like it is subjective. Actually, this I think is a good place. I'm just gonna like sidebar for a sec to explain to the audience. I try to do this every year of like how Oscar films generally get to the point of nomination and the voting process. So like, first off, like, the production houses, they have to meet some requirements, they submit their films, and then for each classification, so like directors, editors, that group of people vote on their short list of nominations, and they use I believe they use a ranked ballot, and then those films go forward, and then when they get into the stage that we're talking about right now, the entire Academy votes on that. The only category that's not like that is Best Picture. Everybody's voting on nominations, and everybody's voting on the final decision for Best Picture. So these types of conversations that we're having, regular Academy members are also having. So again, it's not science, it's just like people's opinion. And this is also why, remember, it is the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Science, right? So sometimes, especially recently, when we get into the Oscar races or after the Oscars, the regular normies in the world start being like, yeah, but my favorite Marvel movie isn't up there. And what is this fucking Parasite movie? I've never even heard of it. It's because the Academy is not you. The Academy is, by its very definition, kind of an elite organization. And by elite, I even mean elitist. Like, if you're not an Oscar-winning director, you're pretty much, for the most part, or have been invited to the Academy, you're not voting on these stuff. So you are not the average guy next door, right? So I think this is all like really important information because, again, stuff like this AI conversation for the general Academy member, when they're going into their final voting, they could be like, I mean, Adrian Brody, again, if they don't dig deep enough to find out what Anelle just talked about, like those, it's a nuance. They're like, oh, I heard Adrian Brody, they used AI on him. And that could be it. That could be all the information they know. So hopefully they're listening to this podcast.
Well, yeah, like last couple of years ago, I was repping a movie called Embrace of the Serpent, which arguably should have won foreign language. And the movie that was just simply the more popular one ended up winning. And a bunch of Academy voters, obviously they didn't publicly say their names or anything like that, but they openly admitted that they didn't watch any of the movies. They just picked whichever one had the most buzz. And then upon reflection, they were like, oh yeah, I didn't know Embrace the Serpent was a thing. I watched it. That's actually a beautiful movie. Should have won. Which kind of sucks for the filmmaker. That's devastating. Especially
Scott has actually been able to beat me in the international category because of that. I think, was it Another Round, Scott?
Yeah.
Where I picked like a more obscure film, and you're like, it's going to be Another Round because it had Matt Malkinson in it, the same director, and then the same director as The Hunt, and it did, right? Because I think a lot of times with certain films, including international category, they're like, oh, I know that guy. And that's how people vote.
Hey, I think that was the same case for this year. If Emilia Pérez didn't do what it did.
Oh, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
I was just going to say that too. We'll talk about it later. But the public has a lot of sway on this stuff. Like Emilia Pérez was like a 4.0 average on Letterboxd a few months ago, and is now a 2.1, which is the same as Rebel Moon has. So it's this stuff changes, you know.
I do want to just say one thing. There is a wild card in here, and that is Ray Fiennes. Because if the Pope actually does die in the next 2 days, this movie now is so much more relevant that they're just going to be like, it's this one.
Is this the category for that? Yeah. I think the funniest would be if Sebastian Stan won for The Apprentice, because it'd be like they gave Trump an Oscar. I don't know how that would go over.
Well, I think it was yesterday. The director just got dropped by his agency because he was caught groping
at a party.
So,
like a CAA party or something like that. Guys, like,
yeah.
I mean, and now I'm sure
he's method. He's a method
stories of the like behind the scenes. I'm not going to put you on the spot to talk about it, but like, I'm sure because you are at those festival parties and stuff, I'm sure you're just like watching A-list people be like almost throwing away their careers for stupid shit.
I will not say anything on that matter. I know nothing. I don't go to those type of parties.
Who is the worst celebrity you've met? No, just joking.
Yeah. Now that we've got you held hostage here, gun to your head, go right now.
I find it more interesting when you find the celebrities that are like super, super nice, and then like, or just even like, just they have a reputation for being drunks, and then they're actually sober. Because there's a lot more of that than the opposite from what I see. But I live in the indie world. It's a quieter space, may not be safer necessarily, but it's a quieter space. We don't have the money for parties.
If you got money for parties, you got money to like, put it into production.
Exactly.
So I kind of agree with you guys. I mean, like I said, Adrian Brody did win the BAFTA. That's going to give it a little bit of momentum. Timothy, what's that?
Did he not win the Emmy as well?
The Emmy? I don't know. I don't track the Emmys, and I don't track the Golden Globes because the Golden Globes.
Or Golden Globes, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Fucking stupid award that really, other than momentum, that's the only thing it gives you. SAG, if the awards were a little bit later, SAG might have had some bearing, but again, the voting process has already closed before the SAG awards come out. So, I mean, I think it's going to be definitely between Adrian Brody and Timothée Chalamet. I really like Colman Domingo in Sing Sing. I mean, I think everybody, this is a very tough class this year. Sebastian Stan was great in The Apprentice. Anybody who hasn't seen The Apprentice is like, go watch it, because it's actually like a punk rock version of the Donald Trump story. It's fucking fantastic. It's super gritty and indie and fantastic. But yeah, I think I'm thinking that it goes to Adrian Brody, but if it went to Timothée Chalamet, I would not be surprised. Anything else on Best Actor before we move on?
Does Brody already have an Oscar?
He does, for the pianist.
Right.
Yes.
Is he really two-time Oscar winner material? I don't know.
But two-time Oscar winner and Holocaust survivor, because both movies.
Oh, right.
He's definitely got a shtick. I mean, it's not
that sets him apart from Chalamet is that Chalamet's really young. You know what I mean? Like, how many times did we say, "Oh, Leonardo should have gotten an Oscar already"? Why hasn't he gotten an Oscar already? I think that Timmy being so young might also be
Tiny
something.
Timmy.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. I agree with you on Coleman Domingo, though. I feel he often just kind of like will have this movie that not many people have seen, and they'll throw him in as the fifth
Yeah.
category, but he's always like really good, you know. I thought Sing Sing was a great movie.
Well, and he also got nominated for an Indie Spirit Award, right? So it's like whatever. He's doing great. He's gonna keep getting phone calls to be in films. His time will come. He's just an amazing actor. And now, why don't you pick the next category? And Scott also has I meant to send out. I'm so bad at like the admin stuff. He also wants to talk about best animated feature at some point. So
Fantastic.
Okay.
Why don't we stay in the acting section? So go to actress in a leading role.
okay. So why don't you start us off?
Okay.
The nominees were Cynthia. I can never say her name properly. Is Cynthia Oveo?
Arrivo?
Thank you for Wicked. And this is what we'll talk about. Emily Perez, Carla Sofia Garcon from Emilia Pérez, Mikey Madison for Honora, Demi Moore, The Substance, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. Okay, go ahead. I know.
I think it's gonna go to Mikey Madison. My answer would have been different like 3 weeks ago. But this makes me a lot happier. I do like for me, it's between her and Demi. But also I can absolutely see it's a tight race. The only people I don't see winning obviously is Emilia Perez, so Cara and Cynthia. I don't see them winning.
Or Fernanda Torres.
I can see Fernanda Torres winning. I can.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I think like she's not the front runner. I think it's definitely Madison.
So Mikey Madison did win the BAFTA for Honora. She is nominated for a SAG Award, and she did win last night at the Indie Spirit Awards. And that's an open classification at the Indie Spirit Awards. It's gender neutral.
Yeah, and I don't think the Oscars are ready to give it to someone that's in a horror film. I just don't think they're ready for it yet. Or at least this type of horror film, I should say.
Do we want to talk about let's separate there's two controversies in my opinion around Emilia Perez. There is the lead, like Carla's controversy, and then there's the filmmaker stuff around how they portray trans people as well as how they portray Latin Mexicans. So let's just talk about Carla specifically. So this is a front runner. I think they were nominated for what? They were nominated for 13 Oscars as a film, Emilia Pérez, including Best Actress, Best Picture, all the big ones. And actually, it was a Canadian, I think she's out of Toronto, Sarah Hagee, managed to find all these tweets, some of them like recent, like 2023, and that were just like full on racist, George Floyd type stuff. She's actually the actor is from Spain. Carla's from Spain, and like the amount of like anti-Muslim racism that was just still open to the public. Like Sarah, when she did her search, like she didn't do a deep dive. She was just doing like keyword searches on Twitter, and just came up with like all this crazy stuff. And the shocking thing is that like here's this Oscar frontrunner with this stuff just publicly visible.
What? Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
It's crazy.
I just thought you were like talking in terms of general, in terms of like if anybody didn't know what was going on with her.
Well, that is the I wanted to make sure I gave credit to the original reporter, right? So this has caused this crazy storm because as we discussed at the top of the show, like this is not an objective contest, it's subjective. So first off, do we think that this is because she did win the BAFTA?
Okay.
Or wait, no. Mikey Madison won the BAFTA.
She absolutely did not win the BAFTA.
No. Sorry. It's because they wanted a different category. That's why. Yeah. Sorry, I got my notes mixed up. Keep going.
How dare you?
I know.
Listen, like I know she was the front runner for the Oscar. I don't think personally hated the movie.
It was awful.
I found it offensive. with that being said, taking out what the movie's about and all of that, I just didn't like their performance. I didn't, you know what I mean? I just don't get I understand on a checking off the boxes situation why this movie is had the buzz that it had, especially with the director being who he is, with Rust and Bone and all of that. Like, I get it. I don't think it deserved 13 nominations.
It didn't. Yeah.
No, it's like, as a person who does sit in the music world as well, to give a movie so many accolades when people are off key blows my mind. Also, if we're gonna give any props to a movie that touches on like gender identity and stuff like that, I saw the TV Glow. I realize that's not Oscar baity, but like, I saw the TV Glow. Better freaking movie.
I didn't understand that movie. I was not smart enough to understand it.
It wasn't meant for you. That's okay.
Okay, good.
It was meant for someone else that's trying to go through a thing that can identify with it. Also, apparently at South by Southwest, way bigger impact than watching it at home. I can attest to that. Yeah. I did not feel the impact as much as I thought I would have, but I wasn't in a theater. I was watching it at home on my laptop. So
I liked it. I don't know what Chris didn't understand, but yeah, the wind is out of the sails on Emilia Pérez, because I mean, I don't want to be cynical about this, but it is was Carla Sofia Gasson's nomination was probably largely a symbolic nomination, especially with everything going on right now in the world, in America. And it's kind of, it's been sabotaged by a lot of this stuff. I will also say this is tangentially related, but it is kind of crazy to me that people who have made their whole lives the past 5 years complaining that everything is cancel culture are not saying a thing about this. I wonder why that is, But at the same time, yeah, I think the problem with the movie is also that it doesn't really give its actors much of a chance to do anything, because it falls for a trap of a lot of movie musicals, which is that the emotions are completely internal, and the lead character is not developed as an external personality in the film. And the whole last half of the movie, I was just waiting for it to be over. I was kind of with it for the first half just because it was so weird. But then there just came a point where it's like, I don't care about anything. You haven't developed these characters in a way to make me care. And I don't know. I think that, I mean, I feel bad for everything that's happening. I don't really know where to stand on it. It's just a crazy situation. But,
well, and it does suck if you're one of any of the other people that worked on this film, that you're like, it may taint all the other, classes that you may have won an Oscar or win, or even just being associated with the film now is sort of like, yeah, I worked on that film. I'm sorry.
I am really grateful that it doesn't look like it's gonna hurt Zoe Saldana or Selena Gomez in any way being on this film, which is if it did hurt them, that would be devastating, because that
really. Well, and Selena Gomez is a billionaire, isn't she? So it doesn't matter.
Well,
right, but those two have not thrown the movie under the bus either, which shows a kind of integrity. And yeah, I agree. I feel bad for Zoe Saldana, who's
most specifically,
came out of, was this at Cannes? Just came out of it with this thinking this is going to be a huge movie, and then oops, one of your actors tweeted all this stuff. So yeah.
She's been trying to break through outside of the Marvel space for so long, and this was kind of the one to do it for her. Right. I think for her career, it's still gonna be very powerful, but a little bit of a dent in that beautiful transition into stardom, right?
For sure. I mean, she's in 3 of the biggest franchises of the past 15 years or so. So yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark, do you think it's going to Mikey Madison then?
Maybe. I think it's kind of neck and neck with Demi Moore, and the Mikey Madison stuff, I feel has kind of changed in the last couple of weeks. It's sort of started leaning more towards her, but I'm actually going to stick with Demi Moore for the reason that she's an older actor and has been underestimated most of her career. I don't know if there's been a great Demi Moore performance ever, and this is the best one by far. It's kind of surprised a lot of people. I agree with what Anelle is saying about Substance is a horror movie. However, it does feel to me that the Oscars choices are getting kind of cooler now. Like there's 4 or 5 kind of cool movies on the Best Picture lineup this year, and I mean, it's weird because Substance is an extreme movie. It's like it's tough to watch. It's body horror, but I think there's something in the zeitgeist right now. You're seeing it in movies like A Different Man, but also just this idea of kind of like beauty culture and what it means. And I think I don't know, I think she kind of owns that movie. And I think it's going to be a performance that we're going to remember her for. Mikey Madison is a ball of energy in Honora. So, I mean, it could also go that way easily.
So could this be Demi Moore's kind of Jamie Lee Curtis moment? Because I mean, the Substance is nominated for like Best Picture and Best Director and a bunch of other big awards. So it's not just her. Like there's momentum behind that film as well, right?
True, but I think it's more of a showcase for her than Everything Everywhere All at Once is for Jamie Lee Curtis.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is lead versus supporting, correct? As well, right?
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah, I'm going with Demi Moore, mainly because of everything you guys said. I think this is her first time actually being nominated as well in terms of her whole career, which is surprising because I know you're saying like no Demi Moore good movies, but you'd figure Best Supporting for.
Well, Ghost is a good movie. There's good movies. It's just like, has she been brilliant in a film before? I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm having a brain fart now, but Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson,
You good man.
A Few Good Men, like Best Supporting, you would assume. G.I. Jane, you would have assumed.
Yeah, she was good in that. Yeah.
Right.
Like in the short list for a possible nomination, but she just never made it there, kind of a thing, right?
Well, it was a different time then too. I think that she wasn't, unfortunately, let's be honest, she at that the times that we're talking about, she was like young, really attractive. She's still attractive, don't get me wrong. And G.I. Jane, she had some stuff done cosmetically, and I almost wonder if at the time people couldn't see past her aesthetic, because those are both like, she's amazing in both those, and she's the lead in G.I. Jane. Like that's like one of my, when I was in the military, that was like one of my favorite movies. Like it's such a great Navy SEAL film. Like it's better than Navy SEALs as a Navy SEAL film, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think there's something like the Oscars also needs to pull in ratings. So it's like picking the popular movie, like Barbie, picking the popular movie that like has already done its thing. Does it need the nominations? What is the Oscars truly doing? Is it lifting films up that need to be lifted, or is it getting ratings? Yeah, there's an argument. I'm not saying my opinion, but there's an argument there.
Brittany, were you thinking it? No, you said it.
So I think that now there's like that opening for people who like Demi Moore, who've had maybe popular movies that have kind of been left behind and not nominated. They're getting seen now, right? Because I think that like there's an argument where like 20 years ago, would Honora be nominated because it's done its thing? It did really well in the box office. You know what I mean? Again, I'm trying to stay as neutral as I can on this conversation.
Why are you trying to stay neutral? That's the whole reason we have you on the show. We want you to burn all your bridges right here, right now.
But yeah, like I agree kind of with how everybody was saying with like Timothy Chalamet. I think Mikey Madison's kind of still young, kind of thing, which she'll probably get more, and this is probably Demi's not final go around, but you know, she's probably not gonna get nominated very often much. And it's been, I think, 3 decades since a horror movie has been nominated for anything.
Is that including the Silence of the Lambs?
That is the Silence.
That is the Silence.
1991 was the last time.
Counting Parasite as a genre film? Are we counting Get Out as a genre film? What are we counting as a genre?
Get Out. Yeah, Get Out is a horror movie.
Let's just, I don't know. Again, this is me staying on a neutral argument of like, what is genre these days?
Yeah. Also, a weird one, but The Cell with J-Lo got like a best costume nomination, I think, in 2000.
Well, yeah, and if you want to say, taking the craft ones, I mean, yeah, that's going to open up that conversation as well, right?
I was going to say, and Suicide Squad is an Oscar award-winning movie because it did win Best Costume.
Thank you would be nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other requests?
Oh, an espresso machine.
But yeah, but my choice is going to be Demi Moore because I do think it being genre horror is going to get more people kind of being like that the Oscars aren't so pretentious and
Well, and as a voting block, the actors are the biggest group, right? So, and again, remember, these are Academy actors. So there's a lot of older actors, and I mean, people who are older than Demi Moore that are still part of the Academy that I kind of think, like Jamie Lee Curtis, they might be like, they want to throw her that bone, right? At the end of her career. Not that it's the end of her career, but like she's definitely late into her career, right? So
also saying throwing her a bone makes it sound like she doesn't actually deserve it.
Fair enough.
It's your reward.
Touche.
Well, I think it's just like kind of
I think no offense. I think Jamie
right?
Lee Curtis fucking got thrown a bone, and that Oscar has now created an environment where Jamie Lee Curtis thinks she's a fucking Oscar performing actor, and they put her in dramatic roles, which she is awful in. That is my hot take, which I'm more than.
I was gonna say, wasn't her follow-up movie Borderlands, which didn't fucking make
no,
any
but
money?
then they put her, but they then put her in The Last Showgirl, which she's also awful in. So
I didn't see it.
So I think that oh man, you guys have kind of convinced me. I originally thought that it was going to be Mikey Madison. You've definitely swayed me a bit to possibly Demi Moore. Fernanda Torres though, man, and I'm Still Here. Like that's a fucking acting performance. Like that is some like hard drama, like classic old school. Like again, like you said, Anelle, like back in the day, would Nora have been nominated? This would have been Fernanda Torres's award to not win. Like that is like what your classic Oscar acting dramatic role was. She was so good. That film is fucking heartbreaking as well. So
I think anyone voting for like the actor, if you will vote for her, which is why I think like it's a really tight race for all three of them. I do think Fernanda Torres is probably not going to win, but like if she did win, I'd be like, yep, that tracks.
Do you think Carla goes to the Oscars?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100% she goes.
I think it's gonna be interesting. Who thinks that she will go to the Oscars? Scott, you think she's gonna go?
100%.
Mark,
I think that was probably her, like because everybody, once all the controversy happened and they're like, just shut up and kind of go away, be quiet. That was probably what the back end thing is. Like you can still show up to the Oscars, say your speech, but just don't be promoting this anymore, right?
Who's hosting?
Conan O'Brien.
So, yeah, Conan probably won't be too cruel in making jokes on stage.
I mean, I want Ricky Gervais to host the Oscars so bad, just once.
I mean, if I was her, I'd go just because how often are you going to go to the Oscars? But I don't know. I can see it being sort of awkward too.
I know, and you don't think she shows up?
I don't think so. Just because she hasn't shown up to anything since, but also like with Netflix kind of getting rid of everything that involves her, like her face is removed from everything. And technically, Netflix is the one that's supposed to pay for her to get there. It's like the promotion. As Netflix, if they're removing her from everything, do you really want her to be there?
She shows up in like a cab.
Well,
like, what are you doing here?
She does that. She's essentially pulling a Kanye. You weren't invited to this. Like you were technically invited. Your name's on the thing, but we didn't want you here. You're not at the table. You know what I mean? I don't think she's gonna be there. Also, the Spanish version of the Oscars, is it not also next weekend? And she's gonna probably win there, but not at the actual Oscars. I did read an article on that. I just can't remember like the facts on it. My bad. I should have remembered that. But like, I don't think she's coming. I think Netflix probably, if anything, paid her not to come because that just brings it all, that her face just brings it all up, right?
And then even if they do win any awards, the whole conversation in the zeitgeist is going to be her. Every question that she gets on that red carpet is going to be not about the film, but about her and her tweets. And like you said, it just brings it back into the media cycle.
Well,
right?
I don't think she does red carpet. Carpet. I think she gets just like shuffled in, like maybe Kraft's table side, right? Like, and just goes in, sits down, right? Like, I don't think they'll put her through the press, but I think she will be there.
I mean, I would also say that I don't think the average person knows specifically anything that she said. I don't. So I don't think there's like an anger from the general public against her for this, but like it's not like Kanye, where like Kanye just released a line of swastika T-shirts yesterday. Like that's crazy, and
That's
people
fair.
know that stuff. But with her, it's like I don't know what she tweeted. I know that like she said some racist stuff, but and I think most people are in that situation. She did something bad, but I don't know. I'm not sure the average person
But the
has some personal
reporters would
vendetta
know.
here.
And so if they get a
Yeah,
chance,
yeah.
Yeah.
they corner her and they're like, so yada yada. And then the public's like, oh, okay, that's why we haven't heard from you in a while. Oh, let me go deep dive into that. Oh.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Oscars is like a classy affair. Do we want
Yeah, sometimes you go on the stage and fucking slap people and there's no consequences.
Well, I said that with a little edge of sarcasm. But like, when I don't know, I just feel like that's probably she's maybe not invited, but like the indication not to be there is probably
Can't sit here. Can't sit here.
You can't sit with us.
Mark, what do you want to do? Like I said, we also can talk about animation and we can also talk about international films. Those are the two other categories we have available.
Well, I've seen 3.5 of the international films. I'm halfway through watching the Persian one.
The Seat of the Sacred Fig. It's actually the German submission, but it is in Persian.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. Did Scott, you wanted to do animated? I've seen all of those. You wanna...
Sure.
Okay. Strong category, in my opinion. The nominees are Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. I suspect that Flow is gonna win. Just because it's kind of new school. It uses a lot of. It's a movie about a cat and a bunch of other animals. There's no English dialogue or any human language dialogue in it. It's just some sort of post-apocalyptic world. We don't quite know what happened. There's weird flooding events and giant cat statues around. But it's kind of has an interesting, what I would call a video game aesthetic almost. But that looks really interesting in a feature film. And I think what animal people especially love about this movie is how well it captures the movements of all the animals. It's very kind of chill, but hypnotic and compelling. But I was surprised how much I liked Inside Out 2, and I think The Wild Robot is kind of a wild card here.
So, Anelle?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Flow. With that being said, did I cry like a baby during Wild Robot? Yeah, I did. That was not a movie I should have watched at Fantastic Fest in front of like the night before Terrifier 3 has its premiere. The next morning, I'm sitting there watching this movie, and it's like, oh, weren't you the girl with the horror film and you're crying? Yes, I am. Feeling a lot of emotions. But yeah, I think it's Flow.
And didn't Inside Out 2 make like $1 trillion or something like that? Not that matters, and it was like early.
No,
I think people may have forgot.
Gigantic.
Yeah,
it was.
The first one won the Oscar as well, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think it did win the Oscar.
I can't say it, but that sounds probably right.
Sounds right, yeah. Scott, what do you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Flow as well, and the main reason because there's no human dialogue in it. I think the fact that it uses kind of what motion pictures can be, where you can tell a story without dialogue and having it be a visual medium in which you're not lost. You kind of know what's going on. I thought it was so well done and the fact that it's also nominated for foreign, right? So I know it's not.
We call it international now. It's
I'm
international picture.
What happened to free speech, man? Why can't I just call it whatever I
want?
I grew up.
You want to do that? You can go over on like Rumble or something like that, and you can be all free speechy you want.
Okay. My podcast is free speech, Scott.
Thank you.
Movies, chaos, and free speech. My heart goes out to you, Mark.
But sorry, it's 40 fucking years of calling out something, right? But I think because it won't win there, it's gonna win here in this category. But yes,
it did just win at the Independent Spirit Awards last night.
Yeah, I think Wild Robot is like my second choice.
Yeah.
because of the whole it doesn't matter who your family is, anybody can be your family kind of thing.
I don't have friends. I got family.
It's a nice like message to give, but I think in terms of visual medium and accomplishment, it's Flow.
Yeah, and I would agree. So Flow was submitted, I think is it Estonia? Latvia. It's by Latvia. It's got a lot of buzz. I think like any of the kind of film heads, this is the film that they've been tracking. They've seen it. Out of all the animated films, it's the only one I've seen. And I saw it because it was on the international list and because it was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. So I was voting on that. And it's super touching. Like like Mark, I think it was you were saying that like the way it captured animals. Like if you have a dog or a cat, you're like, that's how my animal acts, right? Mm-hmm. And okay, I don't want to spoil anything, but for the most part, for anybody who's thinking of watching this, there's no animal death. There may be an animal that goes to some heaven-like space possibly, but there's no, and I don't want to spoil it, but I also know a lot of people who love animals don't like to watch films where animals die. There's a 99.9% chance that like none of these animals die, right? So as much as it gets you on the edge, don't worry. For the most part, they're all going to be okay.
So you're saying no one would watch All Dogs Go to Heaven because an animal is going to die?
I know people that literally will like Google these movies to find out if an animal dies because they're just not interested in watching it. And actually in I'm Still Here, like when the one animal dies, like everybody was like, fuck, man. And they show it and it's like, I had to look away. I don't like that stuff, man. I don't want to see that in movies anymore. If you can hint at it, but I definitely don't like to see like an animal like hit by a car or something like that. Fucking sucks. So, but yeah, I think Flow's probably got this one. Because like I said, it's also, like you said, Scott, in the international feature category. So there is definitely some support behind this film.
Yeah. Memoir of a Snail was just too much tragedy, I feel. But you're right. Most animal movies, the animal's going to die. I didn't think of that, but Flow has 100 animals in it, and they don't. So
yeah.
There's something
they take them to the edge, and a lot of times you're like, and I'm like, I know that none of these dies. I already Googled this.
You're the people you're talking
I was
about.
the people. Yes, I was the people. So do you guys, is there anything else you guys want to talk about animation? And then I want to move on to best international feature, the category I picked. So
I'm good to move on.
We're good. Okay. So for best international feature, we have Emilia Pérez, submitted by France, Flow, submitted by Latvia, The Girl with the Needle from Denmark, I'm Still Here from Brazil, and The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which is in Persian, but it is submitted by Germany. So I think Emilia Pérez is off the table. We've talked a little bit about like the controversy with the actor, but then there was also all the controversy around a French director shooting the film in France, essentially on a soundstage with almost no Mexicans. It's super straight up. It's like just racist and like really kind of denigrates like Mexican culture. It basically shows it all as like either you're a cleaning lady or in the cartels. And if you are a supporter of the LGBTQ community, the way they show like trans people in general is awful, also pretty awful. But that even aside, it's just a shitty movie. And I know we talked about it a bit earlier. It is currently sitting at a 16% audience score and still holds a 72 from the critics. So this is one of those films where now the critics and the audience are just way, 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 way off kilter. But did everybody see all these international films?
I haven't seen all of them. I haven't seen The Girl with the Needle or the second half of Seed of the Sacred Fig yet.
So The Girl with the Needle, I actually did a TikTok on this, is it is one of the like, it's sad. Actually, you know what a great double feature would be? That and The Brutalist. And
wouldn't that be like a week in the theater?
Yeah, you got a week in the theater, and you're basically just keep any type of self-harm stuff away because they are both just like soaked in depression. And The Girl with the Needle is shot in black and white. They use some cool aspect. I think they use like a 4:3 aspect ratio, so it's really tight. It's like post World War I Denmark, and so there's like class struggle. There's also this whole conversation about like, is it wrong to murder babies if nobody wants them? And it's based on a true story. So you're just like, motherfucker. And I know I'm kind of giving some of that away, but I think you need to go into this knowing like that. When I say bleak, I'm talking like infant murder level bleak, shot in black and white.
Damn.
Yeah,
it's playing here on Friday, so I'll see it before the Oscars.
it's beautifully shot. Like it is a fantastic. Like as much as it's depressing, like The Brutalist, it's a must see movie. But like, I don't know, like watch some cat videos before watching this thing, or have some of that stuff ready right after, because you're gonna come out and be like, God, I feel sad and depressed.
Yeah, no, I feel familiar with the genre. There were a lot of those in the like 2000s. The kind of Von Trier movies like Lily of Forever type things, which were just slash your wrist kind of movies.
Yeah, and it's got that exactly that like European style, like, oh, you think you know sad? Let me show you sad.
Yeah.
Let's let's have a 10-minute essay scene or something like that, because that's just how we do it over here, right? So so does anybody have like, so Anelle, what do you think is going to win Best International Feature?
I'm Still Here. It's a great
I think
movie.
they've got it.
The most buzz from what I've seen. I love it.
So this is where Emilia Pérez, I got confused with earlier, because I get confused because I'm old. It won the BAFTA for International Feature.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, eh?
I don't care.
What is going on with the Emilia Pérez fans? Like, who are they? I don't.
Well, is it the British because they're just like, oh, we're not gonna like, we don't do woke, or like we can be America too? Like, I don't know. Like,
there is an argument that I read. Again, this is not my opinion. It's just an argument that I read. Like in certain parts of Europe is what Carla said technically considered wrong, right? It's like a different viewpoint from a different country, right? Where certain things that you can say are acceptable and they're not in North America. Not saying BAFTA specifically, because they're very much the same ideology as like we are for the most part, but you know, that's there. Also, when did the BAFTAs voting close? It might have closed before all of this came out.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But that was one of the arguments I did read, was like, technically, if you really look at like what certain parts of Spain are saying, like what she's saying is not considered that taboo or inappropriate or whatever.
Some people are like, I'm gonna watch this movie because she said that. You go, girl.
I actually have no idea if that's accurate or not. It's just an argument that I read.
So Anelle says, and I quote, this type of speech is okay. All right, cool. I got my what about you, Mark? From the stuff that you've seen, and you have, I've seen The Seed of the Sacred Fig. I don't want to complain about it too much right now. It does go a bit, I don't know if it goes off the rails in the sense that, how far are you into it? Are they still in the city, or have they gone to the outside?
No, they're still in the city. I'm at least an hour into it. I don't know. I think the movie's interesting. I don't think it's cinematically that exciting so far.
They do some interesting set pieces throughout it, and I almost feel like when they wrote the script, they're like, oh, you know, it'd be cool, I want a scene like this. Because later on in the film, you see this definitely happen, because they are going to leave the city. I'll leave it at that. And you're like, why are we doing this? And you're like, oh, because you wanted to do this, and you wanted to do this. And that was the only way to get to that, right? So it goes from the city basically to like, basically just the family in a, like essentially a farmhouse. So that's kind of your arc. I found it really, I saw it in the theater and I was like, oh, come on, man, we got to wrap this baby up.
Yeah, it's takes its time, and but I do think it's interesting that like it's like an illegal movie, right? In Iran. So I think that aspect of it's really interesting. But all that director's films seem to sort of be in that category, like having read his wiki page. I agree with you guys. I don't think I like the movie as much as you do, but I think I'm Still Here has this. I know Brazil's extremely proud of that film.
Scott, did you see I'm Still Here?
I haven't seen any of these.
Oh, so I was watching,
do you want to know who's winning?
Go ahead. Who's winning?
Yeah. So it'll be The Girl with the Needle if The Brutalist doesn't win motion picture. It'll be I'm Still Here if The Brutalist does win.
Explain.
Are they collaborating with? Okay, yeah.
They're not going to do two World War II movies winning Best Picture.
The Girl with the Needle is World War I.
it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like,
and
Survivor,
not the
War, Survivor.
Holocaust. So
Yeah. And I'm just saying they're
No
not going to do
argument.
two.
War Survivor movies, I'm still technically War Survivor.
yeah. That's like a genocide of your own people, kind of. Well, not. I don't know if it's officially a genocide, but like disappearing. It was a military dictatorship. Thank you.
I'm just
CIA.
arguing for argument's sake on this one. I'm not going to lie to you.
So Scott, as I watch this movie, I'm like, Scott would love this movie. It's in Portuguese, and it's about a family and a dad. And I'm like, these are all like, this is his best picture right here. Like,
Did you guys kind of want more politics from that movie? Because that's sort of what I felt about it. I
wonder if the reason there isn't more politics in it is because it's for a Brazilian audience that they already know the politics.
Already know. Right, but I mean, just in terms of the film taking a stand, also, like, what I do think is good about it is, like, I like how domestic it is, and I think we don't think about how a lot of people perceive these world tragedies in real time, that they are kind of in homes. They're not out on the streets all the time. They experience it on a domestic level, and I think I haven't seen many movies do that. I like that part of it, and I did like the movie overall. I just kind of wanted, like, a bit more political charge from it, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would have loved a little bit more political charge. I also found it was too long.
Yeah, it is quite long. Yeah.
Yeah, like
I almost
there,
go ahead.
all of a sudden I'm like, 20 minutes. I could have gotten 20 minutes back. Just 20.
So I actually think that the film should have ended when it did the first jump, right? From the 70s into the 90s. I didn't think they really needed to do that last little bit in the 2000s.
Like, I understand the reasoning for the third jump, like, it's her life, right? And to show, like, all she's accomplished and stuff like that, like, it is kind of nice. I think the jumps could have just been shorter. Or, to your point, we could have gotten rid of the dog part.
Yeah, we didn't need that. I mean, I know what it because I mean, it showed just like the family being like torn at every level, but I think we could have done without that. I didn't realize it was a true story until the end, by the way.
See, and that's like, that's why I think that the jump to like her dying is really important, because it's like, oh, this is like that impact of when you realize she's like, this is an actual person.
I don't know for sure, but do you think it was shot on 35 millimeter? Because it had a very film, and obviously they're using the Super 8 camera throughout the film, which I thought was a really cool device. But do you think it was actually shot on film? Doesn't really matter. I mean,
I don't know the answer to that. It looked good.
Yeah, it looks good. I think if you have an opportunity to see it, definitely see it. Do see it in a theater, but do understand at points it is a bit slow, but I think it's an important film. This is a really tough category. Like, I mean, Emilia Pérez, I think not a chance. The Girl with the Needle, I didn't even think it would be in the running. Just because I don't think a lot of people have been talking about it. I'm gonna go with I'm Still Here for winning this film. So.
Yeah, I do think, like, I would have loved Seed and the Sacred Fig to win, but I think it also has pacing issues.
Yeah, it's got some big pacing issues.
Like, also, just like for the filmmaker, like, I think, can't quite remember, but I think at least one of the actresses is also not allowed back into Iran because she left to help promote the film. Because anyone who, like, this movie is so politically charged there, right? So anyone who left is technically not allowed to go back in. Otherwise they're going to jail, right? And this is not his first time, as you mentioned, Mark. Like, this is not his first time doing this, but I think this is going to be, it'll be a while before he gets to go back in, which I think is really sad, because he makes some really great movies. But yeah, I'm glad that Germany's supporting it. That's really, really great. And like, Germany does have a lot of Persian expats, so big chunk of my family's there. So
that's cool. Why have we excluded Flow from this category?
Like, for winning?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't see it. I don't see it as, I just don't see it as being as competitive with non-animated films. I mean, I'm open to an argument.
It would be really cool if it won both international and animated.
Well, it did win the Indie Spirit for international film. So, I mean, some people think that is an accurate statement. So,
yeah, it's a great movie. It's a tight race.
Yeah, I mean, the international category, this is why I try to always talk about it on our Oscar show, is a lot of people do just gloss over it. And I'm like, there's a lot of really just good film there. Like, very rarely.
Yeah, no, totally. These are like the best movies from other countries. So
Did you guys see the
they tend to be
Canadian?
better.
Did you guys see the Canadian shortlisted film? What's it called?
Universal
Universal Language.
Yeah, I saw that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that was playing here. Yeah, I
What do
didn't
you
see
guys
it.
think?
I liked it. I think it was like a really strong contender as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's also in Persian and French.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't get to see it. If it's still playing, I could check it out tonight or tomorrow. But
It's a kooky film. It's very kooky. I didn't love it, and I think it was just because I think we had done like back-to-back episodes, and I just wasn't in the right headspace. And I was like, I'm not understanding this movie, and it's a bit too avant-garde for me. So
I like when I can watch a foreign language film and not have to read the subtitles. So for those reasons, it was like a bit of a.
do you speak Persian?
it's called Farsi. No, just joking.
No. Is it? Is the language Farsi?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
depends.
I didn't realize that mea culpa on that one. I thought that Iran.
I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I was just joking.
No. That's important. No, so Farsi is the official language of Iran.
Yeah. But like, listen, there's like, how many times in like when I type in that I can speak Tagalog, because that's the the national Filipino language, right?
Right.
If you go in, I can't remember which festival, but like a few festivals, because I've repped Tagalog speaking films, it's Filipino.
Which
Right?
is not a real language. Like that's not a thing.
Not a language. Filipino is not a language. Each island has its own language. It's a whole thing. So like, you could have said Persian the entire time, and I would not have corrected you because I'm like, it's fine. It's close enough.
Well, listen, if I'm going to correct people for like foreign film, people should be correcting me about the actual name for their official name.
But also, there's so many different dialects of Farsi as well. So it's just like Persian, like immediately that's Iran.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Versus any like Iraq or any Arab country, right? So
yeah.
Scott, do you want to take us into Best Director?
All right. So the nominees are Sean Baker for Honora, Brady Colbert for The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Jacques, I'm not even going to try the last name, it's Emilia Pérez, and Coralie Farragut for The Substance. And I think it's going to be Brady Corbett for The Brutalist.
Why do you think he's going to beat out Sean Baker?
Because even though The Brutalist was 1,000 hours long, I was still way more entertained by that than I was Honora. Like I find Honora like so like, I don't know the word, but self-masturbating kind of thing. It's just like,
which
this
is
is
a
how
typical
awesome
Sean Baker trait.
yeah it's just like, this is like, I don't understand how the guy Yuri got nominated for Best Supporting Actor over Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. Like, I don't understand that. But like, to me, like, there's nothing redeeming about that movie.
Had you seen Honora when we did our year-end episode? Because I don't remember you having the strong a take on it then.
Yeah, I had seen it.
Okay, I don't remember arguing about it then.
Yeah.
But he may not have had The Brutalist to compare it to at the time, right?
Okay, yeah.
So just for context, everybody. So Sean Baker has won the Directors Guild Award for Honora. Then he was nominated for a BAFTA, and he just won at the Independent Spirit. And Brady Corbett was nominated for the Directors Guild. He won at the BAFTAs, and he was nominated for Independent Spirit. So those, I would think that those are. Would we all agree they're probably the front runners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a left field here. I think Coralie Farragut for The Substance.
Ooh.
Really interesting. I just watched her. What's it called? Revenge. I watched that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wild film, man.
I haven't seen it. But I mean, I don't. It could be anything. I don't really know. I think the Oscars feel like they have less front runners this year than usual. But in the case of The Substance, it just feels like it's such a, as much as I just talked about Demi Moore in it, it's just such a kind of orchestra of a movie. The way like it's so like spectacularly like edited, everything's just composed so precisely, and just the kind of over the top nature of it is just like a director like going 200%.
This was a director that didn't need to use AI to correct people's accents, so
True,
Boom.
true. As far as we know, yes, that's
Around.
true. Yeah. So and I feel like I liked Honora and I liked The Brutalist. I don't know. I also sort of feel like it could be either of those but I do feel like with Honora, it's sort of like I don't think it's Sean Baker's strongest movie, honestly, and it sort of feels like some people might be kind of late to the party with that, and this is the one they want to award. I don't know. The Brutalist, again, 3.5 hour movie. Did it annoy people that it was 3.5 hours? That could be an issue too.
What I think is interesting is so Sean Baker wrote Honora. It's also, I think, the first film that he wrote on his own, like no other screenwriters. Brady Corbett wrote The Brutalist. And Coraline Forgo, she also wrote The Substance. I'm not sure, but Emily Pérez in The Complete Unknown. I always find it interesting because I think that there's a definite process there's a different process between directing somebody else's work and directing your own, which I think when you direct your own, you then also have to take 100% responsibility for it. And this is something that I discovered. I just watched The Monkey. We're going to be doing an episode on that for next week. And Oz, buddy, I think either you definitely got to stop writing scripts and you may want to also just stop directing because you're not good at either of those things.
I do think too many directors think they know how to write, and it's an issue. But yeah.
I mean, because guys like Quentin Tarantino were just like, they would write films and make them, and people were like, well, if I can't everybody do this? And it's like, maybe not everybody should. Not everybody should.
Right,
and I would put myself in that category too. I would much rather direct films that are written by much better writers than myself. So, what about you, Anelle? What do you think? Who do you think's taking best director?
I was leaning towards The Brutalist. So Brady.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
do you know what I was going to say,
ahead.
do you know what I
sorry.
realized about Honora? It's literally just Fury Road, just with strippers. You're just going to start where you start is where you end, and you're just trying to find something that's missing, and then you just had to look at the same place. But it wasn't as entertaining as Fury Road.
Well, few movies are. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is more of a best picture discussion, but I did like Honora, but I do feel like the movie kind of left me waiting for like it to tell me something. I'm just like, give me a moment of some character revelation, some arc happening, because I feel it like withholds that till the last 30 seconds of the movie, which strangely I know is the part of the film some people hate, but I thought it was the best part. To me, it's like that like validated everything that came before.
You're talking about the car, that like ending car scene?
Yeah, when she breaks down in the car. It's like because I was waiting for a moment like that for the entire film.
Yeah, me too. If they didn't do that ending, I would have been very disappointed.
Right, yeah.
That ending, like I was like, okay, I'm happy with this.
Yeah, and to me, it was a perfect ending. It's like, all right, well, it's a good movie now. But I mean, I do think like if you look at like the Florida Project, it's extremely, Sean Baker's strength is that he observes this kind of lower class living so well in that movie. It feels so authentic. Honora felt kind of 3% off to me in a way that it didn't quite hold together as well.
Like a bit exploitive, or
no, I think that he's. We talk about this on our new podcast tomorrow, but I think a lot of filmmakers have trouble writing Gen Z characters where they're just reading shit on Reddit and thinking that people talk like that in real life all the time. And I feel like a lot of the acclaim for Honora, or a lot of people who are really blown away by it, are just not used to seeing movies that use the other F word in them. To the extent this one does, and think it's doing something brave, and it just kind of feels like a movie that was researched on like Red Scare Reddit to me almost, in that sense. And I don't know. I mean, I wasn't as compelled by the world as I was with some of his other work. Like, wow, this is like for real in a way that most movies don't have this authenticity. And I think it's partly also that Nora's kind of a fantasy, and so I don't know. I'm not sure the mix fully gelled for me.
how old were you? So for the audience, by the way, so Mark wrote the film Detention, which is like a cult classic now. How old were you when you wrote that film? Because that film is very much about young people, You would agree? Like it's a
Yeah, and it's more like a millennial movie, I guess.
And were you in the same kind of age bracket, or maybe just a little
Well,
bit older?
I was older. I was like, it's a high school movie, and we started kind of developing that script when I was 27.
Okay.
And
But
I guess
do you think you could write that movie now? Like, are you so
uh,
far like you're talking about like Sean Baker basically writing a movie about really young people when he is definitely not a really young person?
I mean, it would be different if I wrote it now. I think that people overthink the categories of other humans and how to write them, and that makes them trapped. I think like once you see that everyone is kind of, I was a teenager once, we all were, and I think once you realize that the basic emotions of that stuff are universal, it's not really that hard, you know.
You just gotta
It's
add
why
the words
you just got to add the words. Like, sure, some dialect changes, but it's why like teens today still watch The Breakfast Club, which is from the 80s. Why do they watch it? It's because they still relate to it in some ways, because some shit never changes.
And then you get older and you rewatch The Breakfast Club and you're like, fuck, this movie is boring.
No, those John Hughes teen movies are great, dude. Like, I don't know.
You're like, who the fuck has detention on a Saturday?
Yeah, I'm not going to that shit.
Make me show up.
It's never happened. It's true. Yeah.
So,
Well, we changed that in the movie. They get detention on a Saturday through prom. We wanted to make it more absurd. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Detention, if you're listening to this, go check it out. It's Mark has a whole thing on their show where he kind of talks about sometimes he feels that actually I think your co-host brings up that maybe other films have stolen a lot from Detention, but I'm not going to put you on the spot here right now.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. So I think Sean Baker's gonna win Best Director, and that is because he did win the Directors Guild. I think that is a very strong endorsement. But I think that Brady Corbett should win for The Brutalist. So I think The Brutalist is just like a much more hard to tell story. Like the way he told that story, it covers so much time, so many different. It's also way less contained, right? Like the Honora essentially is like this spot in New York, other than the dude's house. And yes, they do go on an airplane and go to Vegas, but that is like literally you get on a plane, you fly to Vegas, and you're in Vegas. This is like there's a whole world in The Brutalist, and
yeah.
It's super fucking gritty, and the subject matter that they're talking about is everything from like class structure, the war, the Holocaust, drug usage, sexual assault. Like it's just like and it's a very impressive film, and it's a much longer film. Like he's having to run for a lot longer, but I do think that Sean Baker is probably going to win, and I'm basing that solely on the Directors Guild win that he got. So
I do wish Coralie would win. Like if she wins, butchered her name, but if she wins, that would be amazing. That would make me so happy.
Yeah, and I just kind of feel cool stuff happens sometimes,
and she fought for that movie pretty hard. Like
yeah. And it was a movie. It's come a long way. I remember when we talked about it on the show, we didn't expect it to be a Best Picture nominee. Like that movie went places. And I'll say I do. I mean, I don't know. It might be wishful thinking on my part. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Baker wins. I would also say that Corbett for The Brutalist gave us the image of the year that everyone's going to remember, which is the upside down Statue of Liberty, right?
Yes.
So that's something.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we're gonna do. We're winding up here with the Best Picture. So as we know, Best Picture has now been extended to what is it, 10? Yeah, 10 awards. What do we think about this? Like, because let's be honest, really, only 5 of these are actual contenders in my opinion, and even in that, sometimes there's really not even 5. What do you think about the extending the Best Picture category to 10?
I feel like I don't know. Like I actually try to watch every nominee in every category, and this year feels like I just want to watch some trashy movies again. Like I'm at the point where it feels like homework, which I haven't felt previous years as much. I don't know. 10 is a lot, isn't it? But
I think like it makes sense when you want to give some movies attention that they need, and so giving them Best Picture will make people do their homework and they're going to go watch it. And then you can also put in the movies that have won the box office already, like Wicked, like, you know what I mean? Like movies that likely aren't going to win. Like, I don't think Wicked would win. I don't. It's but like putting it up there will probably have people who would normally not watch the Oscars come and sit or pay attention at least, right? which they
Right.
have to do. We have to get people to pay attention when ratings are going down. So,
Or we could not care about
That's true.
ratings. I mean, we could do that too, right?
well, they kind of have to if they want to put this thing on air. Otherwise, it's a YouTube show.
But
Well, I mean,
there's-
that gives it back to like the actual filmmakers instead of, but whatever. That's a whole.
But
That's
yeah,
a conversation for a different time.
but it's kind of also to put in the movies that the general public would watch. Like, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, the whole reason it went up to 10 was because Black Panther wasn't nominated, like the first one with Ryan Coogler, and everybody was uproar on that. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna extend it to 10, and then that's when you start getting,
And
the more, the
No
more
one
commercial.
about like snubs for best picture in the last like however long this has been in place, right?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. It's harder to get them. But I do think like, I don't know. I understand putting populist movies there, but like even like audiences coming for Wicked isn't quite Titanic, It's not
I know.
quite
That was just
Lord
the
of the
first one
Rings.
that I saw, and I'm like, that's the one
Yeah,
I'm picking up
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I don't know. I mean, it definitely like gets like normal people out to see movies that they probably wouldn't, which is interesting. What do you guys like about the Oscars? Because what I like about them, I don't even really care what wins so much. I just like that it gives me a list of movies to see that I probably wouldn't otherwise. That kind of puts me in touch with what the establishment thinks is good art, and I often discover good films through it. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, like just from a business standpoint, especially with international, it gives me an idea of like who I should be reaching out to try to help make their next movie or whatever it might be, because it might be someone that I missed. I don't get to see a lot of movies when I'm at a festival, right? So like I'm really just like basing this off of whatever buzz I hear, whatever's in the trades. So the Oscars really does help me there, like especially with shorts. Like if something's nominated in the short section, then I go, okay, do you have a feature in it? Like, can I help make that happen and like see what can happen, right? So best picture means the least to me, because there's no way in hell I'm working on a movie with someone that's nominated for best picture. I'm not a studio.
Well, never say never, but yeah, that's true.
Well, fair, but yeah, not anytime soon.
What about you, Scott? What do you like about the Oscars?
For me, honestly, it's the nostalgia factor. Like being a kid, opening up the TV guide, seeing all the categories and each one of me and my family members trying to pick who we think we're going to win. And we weren't like, we'd hardly go to like the movies and stuff. And it's just like simple guessing kind of thing. And then just being like super excited when, you won kind of thing. It's just like this family memory that I have that like every time this is why this is like my favorite episode, because it fucking reminds me of my childhood, just like constantly being right because I'm picking all the right winners.
We'll see about that. Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of nostalgia with the Oscars. I definitely do. I respect the Academy in the sense that these are like very successful people in their craft, right? Cinematographers and screenwriters and stuff like that. And I do want to see what they think is good work. Also, the Oscars are kind of like the unlimited category. So like Independent Spirit Awards, I think 30 million is the top budget. So I always like to watch those to see like what kind of groovy indie stuff's happening. But with the Oscars, man, it's like when you have all the money and all the access, what is the greatest piece of art, I'm air quoting there, can you make? And sometimes you get like the original Gladiator, you get films like Brokeback Mountain, or you get small stuff like, the fact that the Nickel Boys is on this list, right? And I think that there's something about seeing like everything converging and what is possible is always it's always kind of fun to see. But also it also can turn into just like a money game, or you get someone like Harvey Weinstein who just like manipulates the process too, right? Like you also have those other side effects.
There's no manipulation in this. Let me live my my bubble where no one's manipulating anything.
Yeah, it's all just objective, and people are true to themselves, and nobody's been coerced into making their vote.
No politics, nothing.
The objective best films, yes.
That's right. So the Best Picture nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Pérez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. So Anelle, why don't we start with you?
I'm once again torn on Anora and The Brutalist.
So you think those are the two? It's one of
think
those.
So. Unless the Pope dies, in which conclave? Do a callback. You're welcome. Like ultimately, the ones that I think are actually in the running is Anora, The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, and Conclave.
Yeah, me too.
Do I wish there were other films up there in the running, like The Substance? Absolutely. But I think those are the ones that are in the running. I think it's like, depending on who wins Best Director, it'll be the opposite, I think is what's going to happen.
Oh, interesting.
So like if Sean Baker wins for Anora, I think The Brutalist wins for Best Picture. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't think that that's on purpose. I think that's just how it's going to end up rolling for people when they're voting, because they're just so close in terms of like popularity and like all that stuff. So also slightly too long.
Yeah. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I totally agree that it's between those four films. I might actually lean towards Conclave winning, for the reason that I think it's the kind of movie that people are sort of nostalgic for, which is just like an adult drama that works. I mean, it's surprisingly like a pretty entertaining movie about stuff that I'm not interested in at all. So like I went to the movie like I don't care about this, and I ended up really enjoying it. And
it has a crazy ending too. If you have anybody who hasn't seen Conclave, go watch it. It's got a crazy ending.
Yeah, I think it's about kind of like very modern issues, you know, the kind of idea of institutions having to stay the way they are versus like a new changing world, and that kind of tension.
Or even regressing, because there's a whole conversation about, no, we've actually been too progressive and we need to swing back to more traditional values.
Well, that whole discussion. And I don't know. So I wouldn't be surprised if that wins. And I think it has a slight edge over A Complete Unknown that way, just because A Complete Unknown is a biopic, a musical biopic, which, you know, are more familiar with the Academy and sort of feel less refreshing right now.
Well, and Conclave did just win the BAFTA for best feature.
Has it won any of the other best features?
I don't have that in my notes. So I just picked the big ones, and but I know it did just win the BAFTA. So
like Conclave surprised me. I really, really liked it. So ultimately that is the one that I hope wins. It's not the one that I think will win, unfortunately, but yeah.
Right.
I think that I know I like this to my original comment about like films that are on this list that don't really have a chance. The Nickel Boys is, if anybody's listening to this and you get a chance to see the Nickel Boys, it's a really cool film. It's much more of a like it got a nomination at the Independent Spirits. That's how I saw it. I don't know how it got on this list. Good for it. It's a very cool film. It's almost like the American experience with like residential schools, except more with taking Black children and just arresting them and putting them in jail, like in the 60s. So if it's in that kind of vein, it's got some really interesting cinematography. They shoot the whole thing from the character's POV, where a lot of times like there's no two shots, there's no two characters in the same shot, because you are literally seeing through the eyes of a character. But again, I don't know how it got onto this list, but if you get a chance, go see that. Scott, what about you? What do you think? Who's winning this sucker?
That's the thing. Like with this one, this is the one that I think is the hardest for me, because I think it's going to be a Coda moment where it's just somebody that no one's thinking like, and I'm really leaning towards Dune Part 2.
My man.
Wow, Dune Part 2 is the Coda of this list. Okay.
I do, because I do think like Denis Villeneuve was kind of snubbed in terms of direction.
Right.
And again, if we're getting semi-political, you know, nothing says F you about being a 51st state than having a Canadian director win the winning best picture
about in a battle against being occupied.
Exactly, right? Like, and that's technically fucking Dune right there, right? We got the spice. Like Canada has the spice. We got
all
the
the spices and the maple syrup.
Right? So and that's the thing that I think is it might go to that, where it's just going to be like, it's gonna be like the big picture that I think most people are probably gonna expect it's just gonna be like. I think most people expect it's gonna be Wicked. Wicked. But I think it might go to Dune Part 2.
It's not going to be Wicked. There's not going to be Wicked.
I feel the Wicked momentum's died down a bit, it feels like to me, since when it opened anyway.
No longer, I'm not going to make the popular joke, but it's no longer popular.
Oh, you got to do a hair flip. You got to do the
No. I'm not saying popular the way she says it. I'm not doing the hair flip thing, mostly because my chair is black, so you actually wouldn't see it anyway.
Oh.
Like you can't see where my hair ends and the chair starts, so.
Toss.
So I actually think Anora has got the best picture pretty much locked up. And that's because typically to win the best picture, you need to have one of the other guilds, two other guilds kind of come forward with you or come with you. So it won at the Directors Guild, it won at the Producers Guild, it won at the Writers Guild, and it's nominated at the Editors Award, which won't have happened by the time we recorded this show. It got a nomination at the BAFTA, and I mean, none of that even matters. The fact that the major guilds already voted for it, you know that those people, if they voted for it here and they voted for it at their guild, if they voted at their guild, they're probably voting the same way going into the Oscars. I think Anora's got this thing locked right up. Okay. Do I think it is the best picture? I mean, Conclave is very good, and so is The Brutalist. And so I don't know who I would rather give it to, but again, statistically, and this is, Scott, you'll remember, let's remember this. I'm saying Anora just based on stats. I'm bringing some math into this.
2 + 2 is 4, -1, that's 3, quick maths.
And I think it's got all the right pieces to win Best Picture.
Taking out the fun.
I am taking out the fun. That's what I do. I take out the fun of a lot of interactions. I'm not a very fun individual. So
it would be cool if The Brutalist one, that's the one that's like the most, out of the ones that we've selected as like the top front runners, it's the most indie out of all of them.
Yeah,
he didn't make any money on that movie. He didn't make any money, air quoting, on that movie. So
well, it's a lower budget movie that feels like a big budget movie, which is kind of interesting.
It just recouped too. Like, and when I say just, I haven't actually looked since before I went to Berlin, so like I'm 3 weeks behind on what just means, but like I think it was like a pretty small margin from what it like recouping in the box office.
Yeah, it's a solid passion project, and like it's a good film. Like I said, super depressing. Don't drink and watch that movie.
I
did. So
I went just full well people were going to complain that it was on film and the amount of time it was going to take to load the film. So I was like, I'm going to drink because I know during that 15-minute break, it's going to be a little bit longer and people are going to complain about like, it's not in focus. And that's exactly what happened. I was in the theater and I'm like, oh.
Were you doing like a drinking game? You're like, for every time somebody complains about the sound or focus, you do a shot. You were just like wasted by the end of the film.
I would have been off. And it wasn't like, it wasn't people complaining that they didn't like the movie. It was just like they didn't understand film, which is fine. It's totally fine, but they should have gone and seen the digital version.
Did you like having the intermission?
Yeah. As a person with a tiny bladder, I think the intermissions, we need to bring intermissions back. And the little like, cup commercial thingy that they used to do before I was born.
Let's go to the concessions.
Yeah, no, it was very generous that way. I also would say The Brutalist is a well-paced movie. It doesn't feel like you're there for like as long as you are, in my experience anyway. Just because of the way the like movies that are a lot of short scenes over 2 hours can feel extremely long in a way that movies made up of longer scenes sometimes don't. So yeah, I thought it was paced well. Like when the intermission happened, I didn't feel like I'd been there 2 hours already.
Yeah. The only reason I think it should be short is because like I disagree that movies need to have a break because if I need to have a pee break, it's too long.
That needed. They should bring back 75-minute films. It's a good amount of time to sit there.
Yeah, but go watch Gone with the Wind, and you're like, yo, I don't know anything you can take out of this movie. Like, I'm glad
there's an intermission though, isn't there?
There is an intermission. There might be. Is there 2 intermissions or just one? What's that?
I think it's just the one. But I either bring back intermissions or 75-minute long, 90 minutes max. That's my. This is where.
Me too. I drink a lot of coffee, so I often will get the aisle seat, and for that reason. So
Think about coffee addicts and then also like people with baby bladders. Like
right, yeah,
sometimes we can fall under both categories.
that's true. That's true. Don't neglect these groups. That's true.
Yeah.
So will you guys be watching? Do you, as we wrap up here, are you guys actually going to watch the Oscars live?
Well, like everyone under 65, I don't have cable, so
Isn't
I
it on
always
Hulu
find.
or something like that?
Is it okay? Is it the Super Bowl was on Tubi? Maybe they're doing that.
Love on TV, but like I don't think they have it.
Because like every year I'm scrambling for like the first 20 minutes to find a way to watch it, and it's starting to get annoying. But I always try to. Yeah.
Because it used to be what, like ABC or something, right?
It's
I think
still
so.
It is still is.
I think it's CTV for Canada. And so like if you subscribe, what you can do is like subscribe to their platform. You can watch it on their digital.
Oh,
Get the 7-day free trial and then cancel.
can anyone just subscribe to that? Okay.
But yeah, for me, I go to a bar and we like gamify it, which is super
That's
fun. And yeah, I like didn't grow up watching the Oscars. I watch it now because I can. And because I think it's important to like support the industry that keeps me going and alive and all that. So
yeah, keeps you flying to LA like
I was gonna
third
say
day.
you can tell the truth. You do it for work, and it's a billable thing.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
I can
this
write
whole
off
thing at the bar.
The minute she said bars, she was like, "Well, I can write this off. I can write this." It's
I'm with clients. I know because Scott does the same
too,
thing.
like I'm not gonna lie, but like genuinely, it's also like a really like talking about like making it a work thing. It's like a great networking thing because you invite a bunch of people out and then you meet a bunch of other filmmakers that like who knows when I see them, right? So for those reasons, and I like being around like other film nerds every now and then. It doesn't happen too often for me because I'm always flying around. You know what? I'm trying to get my actual name on the Oscar ballot at some point.
I had to go to Berlin and then I had to go to Cannes.
Someone last night referenced Damien and Terrifier, and I was like, it's as close as I'm gonna get to getting a nomination into like an Oscar race or like the BAFTAs or whatever in a very long time. So this is like
Anelle, you're like 20. You've got like 1,000 years left to do this. So
I know, but like I'm not the one making the movies. I have to pray that my taste is what the people want. And as I get older, who knows? Is my taste what the people want?
well, I know the substance is your taste, and it is on a lot of big lists. So yeah. So Anelle, actually, let's finish with you. Where, if you want people to find you, where should they find you? Obviously, we'll throw whatever you tell us now also in our show notes.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Anelle D, Anelled. You can also follow the Coven at the Coven Films on everything but X.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys, you don't produce a lot of stuff straight from the ground up. So please do not send people should not send you their scripts, correct?
Yes, for this instance, correct. Unless you actually know me personally, please don't do that.
Okay, awesome. Mark, what about you? Obviously, co-host of the fantastic Movies and Chaos podcast. We highly recommend that show. I definitely recommend the episode that we're on because it's very, very good. But where can they find you?
I'm on X and Blue Sky as just Mark Palermo, and I'm on Instagram as the true Mark Palermo.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for coming out. Always appreciate your takes on everything. And yeah, I guess we'll see how these Oscars play out, and we'll see if we were right, if you were right, or I was right, or who was right and wrong.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.